Indie folk group Great Lake Swimmers, who are based in Southern Ontario, just released their newest and 9th overall studio album, Caught Light, on October 10th, 2025. And I'm happy to be joined by the leader of the group, Tony Dekker. Tony, how's it going, man?
It's going good. We're just out on the road right now. We're actually on Vancouver Island today. We just played in Victoria last night.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, so you guys have been busy lately, and you're going to be busy really for the rest of the year, right?
Yeah, we are. We're just out on the road, kind of the heels of the release of the new album, and touring across Western Canada right now, and got lots of stuff coming up too.
You guys are currently on tour with Elliott Brood, really into November. But there's going to be some other artists that are joining you on tour to kind of close out the year, right?
For sure, yeah. This tour that we're on right now is kind of a bit of a co-bill with Elliott Brood. They're really old friends of ours, and it's been going really well with those guys. And yeah, we've got a bunch of different people coming on board to support for the rest of the shows closing out the year. Yeah, for sure.
Digging into the new album, when I first hit play on One More Dance Around the Sun, the first track on the album, definitely hearing some Petty and some Neil Young in your voice and in the arrangement. So I'm wondering if you were, channeling any of your favorite artists when creating Caught Light, because I understand you made everyone listen to John Martin's 71 album, Bless the Weather, before the session even started.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of that is chalked up to our co-producer and a good friend of mine, Darcy Yates, who produced the album. He played bass in our band for a couple years. We've remained really close friends, and we were discussing what we would do if we made a Great Lake Swimmers record that was based on early 70s folk music or folk rock music. And so it's possible that a lot of those influences are a little bit more on the sleeve with this one, even just based on that. That's an era that I do really love. I don't know how, far down that path we actually went with this album. And I can also chalk it up to engineer and multi-instrumentalist Jim Boskill, who engineered the album and plays all over with pedal steel guitar. Just an amazing player. And then even down to the mixing, I think everyone was kind of in line with this one. A guy named Steve Mariner mixed the album. I feel like he really sort of also leaned everything in that direction a little bit. But that John Martin album was one that I really thought set the tone for the very quick sessions that we did. And I wanted everyone to hear it, just to, not to sort of emulate it, but to sort of like put everyone in the right headspace to make the record. From
what I understand, this album was recorded in about 5 days, and you were in a forest between Peterborough and Port Hope. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so, well, basically, it was actually recorded in 3 days. Like, we tracked it all in 3 days, and we had set up the band, these really great players, set it up Nashville style. So we're going in and we're planning to do 3 or 4 or 5 songs a day, however many we get through. And with the quality of players that we had, it was just wanted to accept everything that we got, sort of no frills. And it was actually set up in this like a century-old farmhouse, sort of near Port Hope, really out in the rural part of Ontario, of sort of towards eastern Ontario, east of Toronto. We stayed at this place. We all were there. We kind of ate there. We slept there. We made music there. So it was really an immersive experience, but it was really a whirlwind. It went by really fast, and I wanted to do something a little bit more direct and concise and to the point, and just kind of accept what we got, warts and all. And not be too precious about it, which was a new thing for me. I tend to like to labor over these things a little bit. But with the help of the producer, Darcy, and the engineers and everything, I feel like I kind of broke through the tinkering mode, if you will, when it came to making this record.
You mentioned Darcy, who produced the album and is a former, bassist in the band. This is the first time you've kind of handed those controls over. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he had a very big role in pulling everything together, which was nice for me because I had another person there that could sort of, look at things objectively and just make decisions based on what was happening in the moment. And normally that role has kind of fully fallen upon me, but this was the first time I really handed the reins over and let someone else kind of do more of that role of shaping and real producing, It made it easier to do it more quickly and economically, I think, and more succinctly.
Do you feel that you were able to maybe immerse yourself into the art and creating the music and working on the words more so that you were sharing those roles?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was working on the songs until the very last minute. I would even in the sessions as leading up to them, as we were going up, as we were setting up, I was still scribbling away and thinking about it lyrically a little bit more so than the arrangements. So yeah, it definitely freed me up to, I like to do the heavy lifting in the songwriting in this project. So, and in, Great Lake Swimmers throughout. So it was nice to be freed up a little bit from having to think about like instrumentation particularly.
And you mentioned as well, the engineer of the album, Jim Bosco. We were actually fortunate enough to meet him and interview him back in September at the SWOMP Festival in Prince Edward Island, who alongside his wife, Brittany, they make up Brooks and Bosco. Definitely I hear similar styles with them and Great Lakes Swimmers. And they were just, just beautiful, genuine pair of human beings, right? But maybe expand a little bit, Tony, on what Jimmy brought to the album, because he's a talented musician, but he's more than just a musician. He's got a lot of talent.
Yeah, it was really incredible seeing someone operate on that high level up close, because again, not only was he engineering the album, and Ganaraska Recording Company in the near the Ganaraska Forest is like his home studio, but not only was he engineering it, but he was playing, he would hit record and then turn left to his pedal steel and be playing along with the band as we were recording. I mean, it was just incredible. He can play anything with strings. I don't throw around the term genius really often, but it was just so amazing to see what he could do on things with strings on them. We were working on one track that we thought this sounds like it would really call for a fiddle, a violin part. And he was like, "Oh, I got one upstairs. Let me go grab it." And he was literally playing the part of the song as he was walking down the stairs with the fiddle. And then we hit record. This wasn't one of the rare overdubs on the record, but we hit record and he had the part in one take. And it was just incredible to see upright bass, pedal steel, guitar, mandolin, fiddle. He's just all over the record. So his fingerprint's definitely on it.
That's amazing to hear. And it doesn't surprise me because he's, a very talented dude. Happy to hear that you guys were working with him. But digging into some more of the songs on the album, a song that really I perked up when I listened to it, the Running Out of Time, the 6th track on the album, and kind of as a 90s kid and a fan of rock music, I guess it brought me back, and it reminded me of Oasis in parts, like pieces of interlude kind of music, instrumental parts that kind of help weave albums together. And even the 8th track on Pearl Jam's album Yield, or some of the tracks on their album Vitology, great jams and playing and almost mixed with chanting lyrics. So Tony, can you talk about Running Out of Time and what went into creating that track?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like that one out of all the songs in the album was maybe the most, became the most transformed by bringing it into that studio and with those group of people. We have some harmonium sort of drones going on that, a really cool instrument called the bouzouki, which is a sort of a very old stringed instrument from, I believe it originated in Greece. I mean, it was kind of just sitting around in the studio and we decided to pick it up and see what happened. And, I never thought that backwards guitars would have a place on a Great Lakes Swimmers album, but I have to chalk that up to Darcy as well. He's like, let's just try it, let's just see what happens. And it all kind of just clicked when that one kind of came together. And there is this sort of droney aspect to it, but there's also a sense of urgency. So it's a little bit of oil and water when it comes to the lyrical message and the instrumentation. But I was pleasantly surprised. I was hesitant, I have to say, about that one, and I really had to let go. I really had to let go of my producer instincts on that one. But I'm glad that I did, because it was a fun process to make, and the result was really interesting too.
Well, it was, and as a listener, it was like I mentioned some of those bands that it reminded me of, and those aren't. I'm not talking about hit singles that those bands did. It was almost pieces of albums that just kind of helped bring it to the next part, kind of thing. But with this song, it was I feel like you had that element, but you made it its own, putting the lyrics to it and stuff. You know what I mean? It made it just a great track.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really happy with how that one came together. But that one, honestly, that was the biggest stretch for me as a kind of as doing Great Lakes Swimmers for the past 20 years and kind of adding some new elements in. That one was the most. I had to really be pretty free and open to kind of get that one into the mix. But man, I'm just so happy with how that one turned out.
The lyrics too that you mentioned, it's really one of the really explicitly political songs that are in the Great Lakes Swimmers catalog, right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think many of us are feeling a sort of a sense of urgency in a lot of ways. The current climate in politics notwithstanding, and the current actual climate that we're kind of living in, there's lots of reasons to sort of have this sense of okay, the time is here, we're reaching the boiling point, and we need to wake up and do something about it. So that was really the sort of the point, of doing that and delivering it in a very clear and unencumbered message, I think was part of the idea.
Yeah, and another quote too, speaking about some of the themes in the album, I read a quote from you, Tony, that you spent the first half of your life trying to get out of a small town where you're born and raised, and now you're spending kind of the second half of your life trying to get back there. Is that what, I think you were talking about that the first track on the album, but does that theme kind of carry on throughout the album as well, Tony?
I think that was definitely the start. That was the spark of the song, One More Dance Around the Sun. I've realized at this kind of particular stage in my life that there's a real strength in that community, and kind of like really knowing your neighbors, and sort of like there's a strength in a small town that I hadn't maybe previously considered. So that's a bit of a theme. I think that was maybe something that it didn't become an overall theme, I don't think, for the album, but definitely that song. I think that also just sort of speaks to an overall theme in some ways, but it was particularly for that song. And
speaking of community and family, Great Lakes Swimmers really has a large family of past collaborators who kind of drift in and out of the band. We mentioned your producer that used to be in the band. So who are your current bandmates that you're on tour with, have been on the album, and what do they bring to the group?
We're playing as a trio right now, and we have a fantastic drummer from Toronto named Ryan Granville-Martin, originally from BC. Ryan sings, and he's an amazing drummer, and he plays bass. And the other person rounding out our current trio is Colleen Brown, and she's a really excellent singer and songwriter in her own right. She lives in Edmonton, Alberta. She was actually recommended through Ryan, and the three of us have really gelled as a three-piece. She plays electric guitar, she plays bass, she plays primarily the keys, organ and piano in the band, and also is a wonderful singer and sings backing vocals on most of the tunes, actually. So between the three of us and between all the instruments in play, I really feel like we're hitting a lot of the marks musically and instrumentally, but I also think it's the right sort of band for this album. Like we tend to, the band seems to change a little bit with each album, depending on who's available and depending what makes sense for the songs. But I really feel good about how these new songs are being presented with this band. So, and it is a bit of a revolving door. People will come in and out of the mix all the time for various reasons, or depending on availability or life things. People come. It's just how we've always run the project. It's a bit of a singer-songwriter project, if you can kind of picture it that way, with like a backing band. So, but it's been going great so far. Like in the live aspect of it, I'm really happy with those folks on board.
We already talked about some of the dates that you have filling up the calendar for the rest of 2025, but looking into 2026, you have a bunch of shows planned in Ontario, Kingston, and London, and the Mary Webb Centre in Highgate, Ontario. Like, we're from Chatham-Kent, and Highgate's in Chatham-Kent, so we're hoping to come see you guys for that one. But overall, tons of dates, great cities and towns all over the US and Canada. So are there some spots, Tony, that you've never been before, you haven't performed in, that you're really excited to?
Yeah, and actually, now that you mention it, we haven't played in Highgate before, and I hear that it's amazing. Colleen has actually played there before from our band, and we were driving through on the way back from a festival in the summertime, and we actually drove right through it. Colleen said, "Oh yeah, I played here once. It was amazing," and it was just such a beautiful little town. And then lo and behold, we get booked in, for our next round of Ontario tour dates. So I haven't been, and I'm really excited for it.
Right on, Tony. Well, we'll look forward to that, and we'll look forward to all the shows, and I'm going to look forward to continuing to stream your brand new album, Caught Light, which is available now anywhere you listen to music. And Tony, I know you probably have sound checks to get to and traveling to do, so thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Yeah, it was really great to talk to you. Thanks for the conversation. I appreciate it.